Hi guys, this is me, Rusty78609, Central Texas, USA, 3:32 p.m., August the 15th, 2017, and we're going to do video number 5 of a series about life in Texas as I was growing up from 1945 forward. Grew up in South Texas on a farm near a small town named Kennedy, Texas, population about 2,000 or so. Kennedy at that time was a little oil boom area off and on. And in video number 4 we got up to about 1960-ish, I think, and I left off talking about my athletic career. I did not get a scholarship for my athletic prowess. I didn't get anything for my athletic ability, as a matter of fact, because I didn't have any. Well, I had some, but I was good at tennis. I won district single A in tennis, but the only person there was me and the coach. So it wasn't a heavily attended event. Anyway, yeah, tennis was not big. Golf was not big either, even though we did have a golf team. I wasn't on it. But anyway, so we left off with the athletics, teachers with paddles and all that sort of stuff. So all you guys that got in trouble in high school remember getting hit with a paddle? I do. I got whipped. I got busted a few times. We called them licks. Some people call them pops. Same thing. It hurts. Or it gets your attention. I think it's more embarrassing than the pain. But anyway, in high school in Kennedy, they had a FHA class, or FFA class, Future Farmers of America. They also had FHA, which is Future Homemakers of America, which the girls took. But anyway, in FFA, every year, I don't know, I hope I didn't talk about this in an earlier video. I may have, so I'll be brief. But, you know, we raised Duroc hogs, and we had a lot of them. I mean, a lot. And they were a lot of work. And so I made pets out of 2 of them. Out of 1 litter of hogs, I made pets out of them. And, you know, they were both gilts, or whatever you call it. No, yeah, I can't remember now. Duroc. Anyway, they were pretty hogs. I mean, they had a good body conformation, you know, the straight back and the square boxy look that the show people like. So anyway, we had a show, and that was an annual event. And I didn't realize when I took my hogs to the show that after the show they were going to be sold at the auction. I didn't know that. Nobody told me that. So anyway, I had taken my hogs into the show. We had a trailer, and I took them into the show, and they were like pets. So, you know, when you show them, you walk around this little ring, and so I walk around the little ring. They follow me like little dogs. And anyway, I got a blue ribbon. I don't know if that was, I guess that was first place, but whatever it was, I knew I would, because they were just good-looking hogs. And anyway, so anyway, I left the show because I had to go back to out to the country to get the trailer to come back and pick up my hogs. That's what I thought. So anyway, I left, got to the house, fooled around a little bit, wasn't in a hurry, you know. There was water and stuff for the hogs at the show. So got back, it was, you know, getting close to sundown, and I couldn't find my hogs. So I saw somebody standing around there, and I asked him, I said, "You don't know where they put my hogs, do you?" He said, Sonny said, "They take all the stock to the auction after the show's over." I said, "What do they do there?" And he said, "They sell them." I said, "You're kidding me." He said, "It's a big event." No kidding. So anyway, I go out to the auction ring, which wasn't too far away, and my hogs had already been sold. And I thought, well, that's hell. I didn't know that. And I really wasn't sad about it. But anyway, they told me where to go to pick up the money, and because, you know, I had first place hogs. I mean, I got a real premium. I don't know who bought them, one of the bankers or somebody. But I mean, when I picked up that check, I thought, shit, buy hogs. I mean, y'all were good friends, but hey guys, look at this check. Anyway, so that was the hog story. And then another thing, you know, we talked about the drive-in theater and the Rialto and the movies we used to go to and all that stuff. Well, back then, they really didn't have movie ratings at all like they do now. I mean, I remember some of the movies that we went to see were what were called B movies. I never really understood what that meant, other than I thought it meant bad. Maybe, I don't know what it meant. But they were called B movies, and they didn't put a rating outside, and as far as I know, they didn't change the age going in, because we walked into every movie they ever showed. And but I remember one of the movies that was supposedly a B-rated movie that had Bridget Bardot in it. And anyway, I went to see that movie, and we just were waiting for this terrible scene that had made it a B-rated, B-rated movie. And anyway, I never saw anything that bad, but I did remember this: Bridget Bardot was a pretty woman, and I was in love from the get-go. But and another thing we learned from the movies, of course, before, I don't know, in the mid 50s, or late 50s in there, whenever you kissed a girl, you just mashed lips, okay? There wasn't any of this tongue crap. You just mashed lips. I don't know what the hell it was supposed to mean. I never quite caught on to, other than it was fun, and you got a real thrill out of it. But then we moved up to, I remember this one girl, I mentioned her name. That first name was Dana. Her and I were good friends. We probably should have got married. We didn't. But because we used to sneak in the cloakroom and we'd kiss. We just pressed lips. We did that when we were about 10 years old, and it didn't get any better because we kept doing it. And then one day we were talking, and she said, "Do you know how to French kiss?" Well, of course, I didn't want to say no, so I said, "Yeah," because I'd seen it in the movies, the old tongue thing, and she almost too embarrassed. But anyway, we practiced the French kiss and stuff. I thought that was crazy. And did the movies influence our life? Sure it did. Because they had all, they had you had oh hell, I can't even remember his name now. A real famous young actor that was killed in a car wreck. James Dean. James Dean. How could I forget James Dean? All the movies he was in, boy, we were into that kind of stuff. We thought that was really cool. We thought he was a cool dude. And anyway, so James Dean did influence us. Television influence, I'd give it a 0, because television was kind of really just getting started to the mass market. Even though a lot of people had TVs, there wasn't a lot of programming on, and the programming that was on was really soft. Stuff like Jackie Gleason, Gunsmoke started later, Wagon Train, pretty soft stuff. I mean, there wasn't any real negative stuff in there, or bad stuff, I guess. The only thing they did, they trained you to smoke cigarettes. Now remember that everything was brought to you by Lucky Strikes. LSMFT, Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. I still remember that today. And call for Philip Morris. I remember that. All those ads, because the smoking ads, all the programs were brought to you by cigarette companies. All right, and of course it worked. Everybody smoked, and of course some of the big singers back then, the music that I used to listen to, or that I enjoyed the most. Now, of course, Elvis Presley, came in the 50s, 57, in that range, and he was very popular with the girls. I didn't think the guy could sing all that good. I mean, I guess he did. I mean, he was hell of a popular and made millions and millions of dollars. But the ones that really stuck in my mind that were my favorites, Roy Orbison. I thought Roy Orbison was a 10, man. I mean, because he could sing, and the songs that he wrote or that were written for him, they had a little something to them. You know what I mean? And then of course another guy that I really enjoyed was Marty Robbins, and not many people liked him or listened to his music. They didn't play it much on the radio back then either, because he wasn't one of the hot numbers, But I enjoyed it, and I remember this one friend of mine named Kenneth. They owned a big ranch, and Kenneth had a Marty Robbins album, and he also had a record player. I didn't have a record player. Well, we had one, but it played the little 45. Had the little 40. We had the little 45. We didn't have much music. And then another thing that was big, as we move on into the 60s, of course, was drag racing. Now that was a big deal, and of course there were a few kids that had some fast cars. And my brother had a 1955 Chevrolet two-door, and I got to tell you, well, he had the fastest car in town, in the county, maybe in the state. Now, my brother was a mechanic and genius, and that little 283 Chevrolet, he was turning into 12s. You hear me? And for those of you who know anything about drag racing, back in the 60s, early 60s and late 50s, that was fast, and that's with a 3-speed column shift. You got me? 3-speed column shift turning into 12s, high 12s, okay? between 12, 9, 13 to 104 miles an hour. I remember it. Yeah, that was my brother. And then, well, in 1964 and a half, I got a 1964 and a half Mustang, and he built that, helped me build that thing, and it became the number one car in the whole area, and I carried the flame forward for a number of years until that ended. But anyway, the next thing, of course, that skipped my graduation, so we'll go back up a minute. 1963, I graduated in May 1963 from high school, and it was really an interesting event. There was a big build-up, like, wow, we're going to graduate. Everybody was excited, and I remember getting the cap and the gown and all that stuff, which I thought was really stupid. It had the little tassel, and you were supposed to move it from one side to the other. And, I was just lucky I graduated. My grades were horrible, but I did. And I can remember the commencement exercise at the auditorium. You had to walk across stage, and they give you your diploma, big deal. And it was really neat. And of course, we had a little party after that night. I don't know where we went, but we did something, I'm sure. And then it was like you turned out the light. I mean, you graduated, and just a few days later, everybody was pretty much gone. I mean, there were a few people that went in the military, joined the military. Some of the kids went off to college and all that kind of stuff. And there I stood looking around, and where is everybody? I mean, there were a few guys around and girls, but a lot of them just disappeared. I mean, like they just gone into thin air. And I mean, it happened quick. It didn't linger. I mean, it was like with just a few days or weeks, and everybody was going and doing their thing. And of course, me being a working class average guy, of course, the Vietnam War was casting a cloud over everything back then. I mean, we were aware of it. We didn't know. I didn't even know where Vietnam was. I couldn't have found it. You could have given me a globe. I couldn't have found it. I didn't watch TV. Didn't read about it. Didn't care about it. It was somewhere else. It didn't affect me. Of course, the draft was in action then, and but anyway, everybody was gone, and of course that dark cloud was looming in the background, and just a lot of stuff was going on, and of course I had to get a job. When I was growing up, when you turned 18 or you graduated from high school, of course I graduated. I was 17. I turned 18 in July after I graduated, but you were expected to go get it, boy. There's a world out there. Adios, amigo. We raised you, now get out. And so there was a little pressure on that score. And so I did. I got me a job on a seismograph crew. With the seismograph, basically you go around places, you have what's called a recording truck, and then I was on the jug line. You have this long cable you roll out. We'd put out about, a mile and a half on each end of the truck, and then we'd set off these dynamite charges, in holes that were drilled down in the earth about 75 feet to 100 feet, depending on what we were doing. And that's what I did for about, a little over a year. I worked on that seismograph crew up until it was December 63 or January 64 or later, in that range somewhere, because it was after Kennedy was assassinated. He was killed in November 63. So it must have been, or it might have been 65 even. I could be off on this. Could be, because I had my Mustang. Yeah, it must have been 65, because I got my Mustang. It was a 64 and a half, and I think I got it during the summertime of 64. And it was dark blue with a white interior, 4-speed, and baby, that mother was quick. I'm telling you, it was damn quick. And I was the envy of the town, and had girls, I tell you that. But anyway, I did finally, the way my daddy was an interesting fella in the way that he would get me or my brother to do things as we were older, because he didn't just, once we reached a certain age, around 18 like I was, he didn't feel like he needed to tell me to do anything. That I should be smart enough by then to know what I wanted to do and then go do it. And he asked me, we were standing outside one day and we were talking, and he asked me, he said, "Were you going to go to college?" And I said, I don't know. I had never thought about it. And he said, well, he said, you know, you got to remember, so and so went off to uh, medical school, so and so went to dental school, so and so was going to be an optometrist, so and so was doing this or doing that. I mean, he named off some of my guys that were in my class. They weren't necessarily my friends, they were just people that were in my class. We had a graduating class of 60, okay, 6-0. And so anyway, that kind of stuck in my mind, even though I didn't immediately do anything. I did think about it. That's all. He planted the seed, and it hit fertile soil, because nobody in my family had ever been to college. I didn't know anything about college. Nothing. So anyway, I guess it was in '65, January. But it was a cold day, and we were out seismographing. Okay, it was damn cold. It was sleeting, and you know, here we are rolling out those cables. My hands are freezing. I had ice on my face, and we had another guy out there with us. His name was Jimmy. I won't mention his last name. He's dead now. And but anyway, Jimmy says we were taking a break. We were waiting for him to shoot the hole, and anyway, we were back off a little bit. Yeah, you had to get a pretty good way away, because what happened is when they shot them, sometimes there'd be water that had leaked in there, and it would shoot up water 200 feet in the air. And if the wind was blowing right, it would just blow right over, and you'd be covered with mud. So you had to be careful with that. But anyway, Jimmy said that he was going to go to college. I said, really? He said, yeah. This must have been in December. I'd have to say December. But it was cold. And I said, where are you going to go to college? He said he was going to go to Victoria Junior College in Victoria, Texas. And I said, well, really? How'd you do that? He said, well, you just got to go talk to him. And I thought, well, hell, I can do that. And so anyway, one of my days off, or I guess during the holidays, during the Christmas area, I went over to Victoria College. I didn't know a damn thing about college. I knew nothing. I didn't know anything about majors. I didn't know anything about the registrar. I didn't know anything. You know, student union, that was all a foreign language to me. And so anyway, I was brave enough to go check it out, though. So I walked in the building, and straight ahead there was a girl sitting behind a little wall thing with a window. And I walked up, and she said, could I help you? And I said, yeah, I want to go to college, I think, or something that brilliant. And she said, okay, you need to go to the registrar's office. I said, really? Where's that? On top of the building? What the shit? Registrar? What is that? You know? And I said, okay, where is the registrar's office? She went 2 down, you know, whatever it was, 2 doors down on the left, whatever. So I go in the registrar's office. I said, I want to go to college. I mean, that was it. I didn't say anything else. And they said, well, what do you want to major in? What do you want to take? Or something along those lines. I said, well, I don't know. What do you think? I didn't say that. I said, well, what are my options? You know, and they named off some things, and they said that one guy said something about biology, and I thought, well, you know, biology wasn't. I did pretty good in biology in high school, and I said, what's that? And he said, well, what's available there? And they said, well, you know, you could be a wildlife biologist. You can do all kind of things. And I thought, well, you know, that sounds pretty interesting. So anyway, I did. And anyway, they told me about the tuition and the cost of the books and all that stuff. And I had a little money saved. And so I told them, okay, you know, let's do it. So I signed up, and they told me, you know, what the total was going to be. And of course, I didn't have the money with me, and I didn't have a check or checking account. I'd have to go back and get the cash in Kennedy, which was 60 miles away. So anyway, that happened. I got enrolled in the college, and I didn't do worth poop. I was bad. I was bad. I was a bad student. I mean, well, I did. Well, it never occurred to me that you go to some classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you go to some classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I was only taking 12 hours. That's what you had to take to be a full-time student, and that way you got the you got the 2S exemption from the draft. So you didn't get drafted. You were student deferred, or whatever you call it. And so I just took the minimum 12 hours, and so I had I think I had, I don't know, like 2 classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and 2 classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I had the rest of the time just sit around and stare out the window. But I got a part-time job at the school district at the warehouse. My brother was running the warehouse, and he got me on over there part-time, so I did that after. And all my classes ended before noon, so I'd just go out there and work from 1 to 5 5 days a week, give me 20 hours. I made a lot. I made good spending money and my gasoline money, and that worked out fine. As far as the rent on the, we had an apartment. There was 4 of us sharing like a 3-bedroom apartment, and that worked out. We were cheap as dirt, but I didn't do very good. And that's pretty much. I think that we're going to end the series right in that era, because after that, then the cloud of Vietnam got real dark, and it got real dark. It really did. That was a really bad time. Really, I mean, of course, there were protests. You're being pulled one way. The protesters. I didn't know. I knew nothing. Nothing. You're looking at a farm boy that was dumb as a stick. Came from a family, wasn't that wealthy. Certainly had no political connections. And when I got my draft notice, Bush Jr. was joining the National Guard. You couldn't do that. They were all closed. You couldn't join anything. You couldn't join the Air Force. You couldn't join the Navy. You couldn't go in the National Guard. You couldn't go in the Reserve. The only option was the Marines and the Army. That's it. That was the only choices available to me and every other working class human in the United States in 1967. And that's the truth. And for those that were able to use a little political clout and get into the Air Force and some other neat jobs like National Guard, Reserve, I hear it. It wasn't only Bush Jr. I went to work at a newspaper, and the son had gotten in the Air Force at the same time. His dad was an ex-Texas state senator. So anyway, that's kind of how that worked. And then, of course, there were a lot of people from the Northeast. Their sons went into Canada. I think it ended up there was around 50,000 that went to Canada to avoid the draft, and then later on were granted amnesty. And come on, guys, let's level this playing field. But be that as it may, so that's the cloud that was hanging over all of us, particularly the young males at that time that were poor. If you were basically poor with no political clout, you were drafted. That's it. It didn't matter if you had a student deferment or not. That 2S deferment didn't mean poo-poo, because what that meant, see, each draft board had a quota based on the population in that county, or in that county. Yeah, that's the way that worked. And they had to try to meet it, or they did, and they had a list of all the available young men, and when it got to the point that they didn't have any available, they started pulling them in out of wherever they could find them, and so that's how that worked. And but other than that, it would have been a great period, but it really, for many years, it was all the way up till 1972. That was a dark cloud hanging over every young male in the United States. And after that, of course, I did finally go to college, and I did graduate. I got a degree in accounting and eventually passed the CPA exam. And the only reason I did that was because my brother-in-law was a CPA and I couldn't think of anything else to do. That's it. That was my whole career plan. And it was something I could do. I did. I was good at numbers and stuff. And I worked in public accounting for a while. I worked with Arthur Anderson for a while. When I graduated from St. Mary's University, a Catholic university in San Antonio, I'm not a Catholic, not religious. I went there because that's where my brother-in-law went. Deep, well thought out, right? He was a Catholic, and but it was a private school, a little expensive. I paid for it using a GI Bill and a top loan, and what else? A Texas Opportunity Plan loan's a top loan, and but anyway, I got into public accounting. I'll just be quite brief here, but it was okay. A lot of hours, made good money. A lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and so I did that for a few years, and then I took a job with a business out in East Texas where I had some money invested in it, and it was 2 car dealerships actually, and then from there I went to work for a newspaper in Victoria, Texas. I worked there for 10 years. I was the chief financial officer, and that was a good deal. And that was better than public accounting because, you know, once you get the system nailed in private accounting, or, you know, it's the same thing over and over and over. You know, you could train a monkey to do it, but I didn't tell anybody that. But that's the way it was. You know, it was just the same thing, routine. You know, once you got the numbers organized, you just did it over, and then of course you did budgets and you did some cash flow analysis and all that stuff. You know, it was pretty simple stuff. But anyway, having said that, but now I'm here. I've done a lot of things since then, and now I'm living in a 26-foot bunkhouse model RV in the middle of Central Texas on some lots that I own. And again, this is my home base, and that's fixing to change because I've ordered a 16-foot RV travel trailer. This is a 26-foot, so it'd be 10 foot shorter. And you know, then the future for me is going to be to use that travel trailer to go out to New Mexico in the summers to avoid the heat here, and you know, just go to one spot probably and stay there for 3 or 4 months. I might go to 2 or 3. It depends. It just depends. But having said that, I guess that, guys, that wraps it up. That wraps old Rusty up, doesn't it? This is video number 5. We've covered everything that I want to cover related to me and how I got to where I am. And you know, it's pretty similar. Like I've noticed comments, you know, a lot of us have similar lives, and that's good. You know, but what it tells me also, we do have a similar life in so many ways, and yet we allow that talking heads on, or the talking heads on television, the media, to just totally get in our mind. And what I have to say to that, folks, is stand guard at the door of your mind, because what you let in are ingredients. And if you don't stand guard at it, you're going to be filled with crap, and you're not going to be sleeping right. You're going to, anyway, enough said. You know what I'm talking about. Thumbs up, carpe diem, adios, bye-bye. Buy USA made when you can. Drink plenty of water. 3 or 4 quarts a day will not hurt you. In fact, it's good for you. It will help you lose weight. It will help you avoid kidney stones, and it will help you avoid gout and other things. Also, take deep breaths. Breathe in through your nose deep, and then hold it for a second and breathe out. Do that several times a day. Why? Because that will help you relieve stress, and that lowers your blood pressure, which is great for you. And then stretch, walk, keep your body in motion, and you won't regret it. You'll live a long, healthy life. And that's what it's all about, guys. And so, you know, I've gone from being born to being here, and the adventure continues. I'm still here. So anyway, guys, I've enjoyed this. Y'all have a great day. Adios, amigos. Bye-bye.